And my key advice to all dentists is think before you speak. And patients will pick up on your verbal and non-verbal communication. Before you speak, think about what you're going to say. A separated instrument sounds a lot better than a broken file. And how patients hear and perceive things are very important. So don't sit there shaking whilst you're communicating it to the patient. You have to have some sort of confidence that you've explained this already to them. It's an adverse outcome. This is how we're going to manage your adverse outcome. And this is the effect it's going to have on your treatment.
Hi everyone, I'm super excited to be joined today by Dr. Dij to talk about patient communication. Dr. Dij is all about high quality endodontic treatment and has a massive passion for teaching. His work has led up to Evo Endo, an endodontic clinic for referring dentists and a center for endodontic learning for early career dentists. Thank you so much for joining me today, Dr. Dij.
Thank you, Zoe. That was a great introduction. Hopefully I live up to everything that you said.
So we've got lots of questions about communication and we'll get straight into it. So first one is, why is communication so important in dentistry?
Honestly, my belief is simply that if you can understand your patient's values and expectations and you can manage them, then you will get more predictable results and outcomes and happy patients. And the fundamental key to that is communication. And if you can ask the right questions at the right time, you will understand your patients that much better.
And how do you go about explaining certain treatment options to a patient, for example?
Treatment options, I guess, with everything, it is fundamentally explaining to them the value of the treatment, what are you trying to achieve, and what value does that treatment give to them. So instead of saying to them that you're going to have a crown, for example, I'd say, Mrs. Smith, you need a crown. The benefits of this crown are it's going to protect your tooth, it's going to restore the functionality of the tooth so you'll be able to chew on it, and also will be able to make that tooth more lifelike in appearance. Is that something you would like? Instead of saying to them, you need a crown, because the patient won't understand the value of what you're trying to deliver. And also explaining to them the risks and benefits of treatments that you're carrying out so that we fundamentally get informed consent from the patient, which is the key to long-term success.
And when we're explaining these things to the patient, do you think we should be giving statistics when explaining these options, or do you think patients don't appreciate that?
I think statistics are important. I think if patients get an idea of longevity of a restoration, then you can manage their expectations. And statistics come into play if you are doing a treatment that is unpredictable or you're questioning whether you should be carrying out that treatment. First of all, if you're unsure about whether a treatment should or shouldn't be carried out, you should ask yourself, are you going to be carrying it out? And secondly, if the treatment is unpredictable, I don't know why we shy away from communicating that. If you're unsure or the statistics suggest that the outcomes for this treatment option are not as good as others, the patient should be aware of it. So for example, with me, when it comes to root canal treatments, it's very important that I give the patients a statistical background. What are the likelihoods of success? So if I were to explain that to a patient, I normally say to them, again, Mrs. Smith, so Mrs. Smith, would you be upset if I said to you there was only an 80% chance of us saving this tooth? And actually the key is let the patient answer the questions and not you answering those questions for them, because some patients might be okay with 80%, whereas another patient might think 80%, that's rubbish though, right? Whereas if we can actually understand that if they're happy with 80% and the treatment works, they're going to love you forever. If that treatment doesn't work, well, it was the 20% that didn't work, and they will actually appreciate that you said that to them at the beginning. And like we talk about having a plan before you carry out the process, it's the same with communication. Communication is a part of your planning. Let the patient understand what that treatment's being done and why it's being carried out.
And when you're giving out these statistics to the patients, is it as simple as finding a study and getting some numbers from them, or are there some numbers that you usually go with?
Judge your patient. If it's the sort of patient that likes statistical information and is asking you very detailed questions, get detailed with your responses. So if a patient's asking me very precise and intricate questions, my actual communication to them is going to be very precise, very intricate, giving them details of papers and studies. But if it's the sort of patient that is just asking you simple questions and you're giving complicated answers back, you're going to lose them. And then actually, you have to actually ask, does your patient understand what treatment you're carrying out? And
moving on from the kind of patient understanding things, do you think patients really understand x-rays? Should we go through the x-rays with them?
My opinion, the more information you give them, okay, that is going to have an influence on their treatment, yes, it's worthwhile. So for something like root canal treatment, if the x-ray is going to help you explain the treatment to them and what you're carrying out, do it. But if it's of no benefit, then why? Okay, so for endodontics, for me, for example, I would go through an x-ray with the patient. The reason why is I can explain to them the potential challenges that we may have during treatment, and also discuss with them what effect that may have on outcome. And definitely in teeth where they're heavily compromised or broken down, so I think it's very important that you show an x-ray. Why? They normally say a picture speaks 1,000 words. Okay, an x-ray is one form of a picture. I wish I could encourage all dentists to take some photos. Okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be the most swankiest pictures around on an SLR camera, but a picture speaks 1,000 words. If you want to tell someone something, show them. Show them and they'll understand. Whereas if you just tell them, they don't know what a DO composite is, though. They definitely don't know what a DO composite is.
That's great advice. And how do you talk to the patient when something has gone wrong? For example, you've perforated a tooth or you've broken a file.
Planning is being prepared. Okay, so for me, though, they should already have known that there is a potential for that to occur. So when we talked about earlier risks and benefits to our patients, that would have already been discussed. So if it's an adverse outcome and they're not finding out about it the first time, their reaction can be managed. Okay, and my key advice to all dentists is think before you speak. And patients will pick up on your verbal and non-verbal communication. Before you speak, think about what you're going to say, okay? Instead of a broken file, a separated instrument sounds a lot better than a broken file. And how patients hear and perceive things are very important. So don't sit there shaking whilst you're communicating it to the patient. You have to have some sort of confidence that you've explained this already to them. It's an adverse outcome. This is how we're going to manage your adverse outcome, and this is the effect it's going to have on your treatment. And that way, your patient shouldn't come to it as a shock to them. Yes, in some patients, they react badly to it. And then it's how you manage that situation going forward.
And in that case, if a patient does turn out to be difficult and responds badly, how would you manage it that way?
I guess it's managing people's emotions and understanding their emotions, okay? A natural reaction sometimes is you start mirroring their emotions. So if they're upset and you start getting upset, there's two people getting upset, which isn't very good. My answer to it is always remain calm and relaxed. Control your mind. If something's gone wrong, you have to think to yourself, how am I now going to best manage this? So for me, it is if something's gone wrong, I have to provide them with the information that's going to make it better. And you have to ask yourself the question, am I the best person to manage this problem now? And in some cases, it may be that you need referral onto a specialist. Or in other cases, you may be, no, look, I can still handle this, but I need to be able to exude confidence to this person and not show fear. And remember, don't fear things going wrong before they actually happen. So I believe in positivity. I don't even think about fractured instruments or perforations because I actually just concentrate on what I'm actually doing. Only fear something when it happens, not before it happens. So just with them, give them all the information. 1, 2, make sure they're aware of their options, okay? And 3, understand why they're upset and be caring, okay? No one can be angry at someone that cares. Okay, if you show them care, attention, and detail, no one can be angry at you. But if you're very blasé about something going wrong, then you're not going to get a positive response back.
And let's say before you've even started any treatment or you're just talking to the patient and you want to deliver some bad news. For example, you need to have this tooth extracted. Are there any rules that you have or any ways that you go about it?
Delivering bad news to a patient when it comes to an unrestorable tooth, I guess it comes down to explanations. I guess it's explaining to them why that tooth is unrestorable before actually telling them it's unrestorable. So for me, I'd take a picture, I'd take a radiograph, and off a picture I would say, Mrs. Smith, can you see this? Can you see how little tooth there is left? Can you see this? There's not a lot of bone on this x-ray showing that there's enough bone to support this tooth. So having looked at these things, do you think it would be wise for us to save this tooth? I don't actually say the answers though. The patient says, no, I think it's better we take this out, Mr. Aura. Or if they go, well, I still want you to give it a go. I really want you to give it a go. I value saving my teeth. I'd say I share your values, Mr. Smith. But if I said to you, that tooth's not going to be there in 12 months' time and you've paid X sum of money, would you be upset? Because that's the question you really need to ask. You need to ask them, are they going to be upset if they paid a certain amount of treatment and it doesn't work? And if the patient's like, yeah, of course I would. Well, then take it out. No, I wouldn't. Well, this is really unpredictable. And actually, in my hands, I don't think it's going to work. And if you actually don't think it's going to work, do not do any treatment that you do not think is going to work. That is a recipe for disaster. And if it's a may work, explain it to the patient. This is unpredictable dentistry. I'm not sure sure if it may or may not work because of X, Y, and Z, as I have shown you, and this is what we're gonna do. Would you be happy? That's it.
That's a really good answer. And in general, when you're discussing treatment options with patient, how would you deal with one that responds that's too expensive?
I think the patient first has to value you, okay? And you've got to be confident in your prices, first of all. If you fully believe that what you charge is the right fee, you're going to exude confidence to your patient and they'll value and understand that this guy knows what he's doing. Or two, if they say it's too expensive, you have to show to them value in the treatment you're going to carry out. Now, a good comparison that I sometimes use, I go, Mrs. Smith, you want to have an implant done. An implant's going to cost you £2,500. The benefits of the implant are this, and ask them the question, do you value this? And if they say they don't value saving a tooth, then they don't value it. It's too expensive for them. But if they say, yeah, I do want it, but it's still too expensive, then give them a comparison. The human brain loves comparisons, and give them a comparison that they'd understand. So, for example, if they drove an expensive car, my comparison would be, Mrs. Smith, but you're happy to drive a Mercedes that costs 25,000 to 80,000 and you only use it for 40 minutes a day or an hour a day or 2 hours a day. I'm asking you to spend £2,500 on a tooth that's a part of your, or an implant that's a part of your body that is going to be used all day, every day for the foreseeable future. Now, do you value this treatment? And it fundamentally will come down to whether the patient values it. And don't try and enforce your values onto the patient's values. The patient may not value it and they may actually genuinely believe you're too expensive. Then you're not the right dentist to see. And for me, when it comes to prices, there are no discounts. So I will give you this much off if you do this, because that is a future conversation you're gonna carry on having.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Dij. And are there any final comments that you want to make in terms of patient communication, or any final tips that you have?
I would just say perceived value. Make sure the patients understand what they're having done, the value of the treatment, and understand their emotions related to that. If you can understand the patient's feelings related to the treatment, you'll lead a very happier dentistry life.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dij, and thank you for coming on to our YouTube channel today. And are there any ways that our viewers can learn more about this kind of teaching?
Yeah, it's Evo Endo. My whole belief is I want to inspire people to learn and grow, and in my particular field, that's endodontics. And if you're keen to learn more about endodontics, then I would visit the website, which is evoendo.co.uk, and we'll get future dates up on there.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on today, Dr. Dij, and thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.
Thank you, Zoe.